Why people hate you. You want to know why people hate you. It's simple, but it's not easy to hear. It's because you've got something they don't, and that scares them. They hate you because they see in you what they're afraid to confront in themselves. But listen, don't take it personally. Take it as a challenge. People will always talk behind your back. But it's up to you to rise above it. Here's the truth. When you walk into a room, you don't even have to say a word. The energy shifts. It's almost like the temperature drops. People start to feel exposed, vulnerable. Why? Because your presence shines a light on the very thing they've been hiding from themselves, those insecurities they'd rather keep buried. You walk with confidence, you carry yourself with purpose, and that causes a reaction. It forces them to look at the areas of their lives they've been avoiding, the parts they're too afraid to confront. See, everyone has insecurities, but not everyone is willing to face them. Most people spend their lives running from them, covering them up with distractions, excuses, and self-deception. They'll blame their circumstances, their past, or the people around them. But when they see someone like you, someone who refuses to make excuses, it becomes impossible to ignore their own shortcomings. They can't help but compare themselves to you, and in that comparison, they come up short. That discomfort, they hate it. It's easier to point the finger, to criticize, or even to hate on you than it is to take a hard look in the mirror. Because when they do, they have to face the truth. They haven't been doing the work. They haven't been making the moves. They've been avoiding the very things that would help them grow. And here you are, showing up every day, doing what they've been too afraid to do. They hate that you make them feel this way. You become a mirror, reflecting back the version of themselves they'd rather not see. But don't feel bad about it. Understand that it's not really about you, it's about them. You're not out here to make anyone feel small or insignificant. You're simply living your truth. But in doing that, you've exposed the raw truth of their own fears and doubts. That's the hardest thing to face, the fact that they've been holding themselves back, not because of the world, but because of the lies they've been telling themselves. So when they hate on you, understand that it's just a defense mechanism. It's their way of trying to protect their fragile ego. But as long as you keep standing tall, as long as you keep pushing forward, they'll have to reckon with that truth sooner or later. And maybe, just maybe, they'll use that discomfort to fuel their own growth. Or maybe they won't. But that's not your problem. You're not responsible for their journey. You're only responsible for yours. You walk through life with a certain level of success, confidence, or peace that others long for, whether they admit it or not. And deep down, whether they acknowledge it or not, you represent something they could have been. Your accomplishments, your clarity, your inner strength, all of it stands as a reminder of the potential they've ignored, the dreams they've put on the back burner, and the goals they've left unpursued. You didn't settle for the life they've accepted. You've done the work, put in the time, and dared to chase after what others consider impossible. And because you did, it forces them to ask themselves, why didn't I? They see you living the life they thought about in fleeting moments, but didn't have the courage or discipline to commit to. Every step you take forward is a silent confrontation with their own failure to act. And it stings. When you're out here achieving, breaking through barriers, and succeeding in ways they've only dreamed of, it exposes a painful truth: they've let their own potential slip away. It's easy to get caught up in the comfort of routine, to live in the shadows of your own unfulfilled ambitions, but seeing you shine brings that truth right to the surface. They could have been there too, but they let fear, doubt, and procrastination take the lead instead. What you have, the progress you've made, it doesn't come by accident. It comes by dedication, by refusing to back down, by putting in the sweat and sacrifice most people aren't willing to make. And that's what hurts. It's not that they dislike you or even envy you in the way we often think of jealousy. It's that they're reminded of the life they didn't take the leap for. They can't hate you for your success, but they sure can resent the fact that it reminds them of their own inaction. You didn't just wake up and get everything you have. You fought for it. You've had setbacks, failures, and struggles just like everyone else. But you didn't let those stop you. You used them to push yourself further, to fuel the fire inside. And while they may admire you in secret, they can't stand the fact that your journey exposes their own complacency. It's easier to hate than to face the uncomfortable truth that you've created the life they thought was out of reach. You are a mirror that reflects back everything they could have accomplished, and they hate it because it forces them to deal with the question they've been avoiding for years. What if I had tried harder? What if I had believed in myself more? And for some people, that question is too painful to answer. So instead of asking it, they push it away and turn their anger or resentment toward you. You remind them of their own potential, And that's something they either refuse to acknowledge or are too afraid to embrace. You're the kind of person who doesn't just accept things the way they are. You don't settle for what's easy, for the life that most people fall into because it feels safe. The moment you step into a new space, you challenge everything around you. People get comfortable in their routines, in the familiar, even when they know deep down it's not where they should be. But you every single day remind them that comfort is a prison. You're out here pushing boundaries, stepping into unfamiliar territory, and doing things most would never dare. That kind of energy, that refusal to accept the status quo, makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to question their own lives, to face the harsh reality that they've been coasting. You push the limits of what's possible, and by doing so, you push others to look at their own choices. They don't want to acknowledge it, but deep down, they know that they're not growing, they're not challenging themselves. They've gotten used to the predictable path: wake up, go to work, go home, repeat. It's safe. It's easy. But easy doesn't lead to anything extraordinary, and you're proof of that. When you show up and give it your all, when you take risks and go after what others would call impossible, it exposes how far they've been willing to go, or rather, how far they haven't been willing to go. You're a living, breathing example that it's not the world holding them back, but their own fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. And that's uncomfortable to face. It's easier to hate you than to admit that they've chosen comfort over growth. You've made it clear that you're not afraid of struggle, of discomfort. You embrace it because you know that's where growth happens. That's where real progress is made. But for many, that's a hard pill to swallow. They want the rewards without the work, the success without the sacrifice. They want to stay in their bubble where everything is predictable, where nothing changes because the unknown is scary. But by simply living authentically, by daring to do things they wouldn't even think of, you're challenging the very foundation of their comfortable lives. You're not out here to make them uncomfortable on purpose, but they can't help but feel it. They want to stay safe, and you're over here pushing the boundaries of what's possible. You don't wait for permission. You don't ask for validation, you just do. And every time you do that, you challenge everything they've accepted as their reality. The truth is, they're afraid. They're afraid of what could happen if they stepped outside their comfort zone and took the same risks you're taking. But you're not waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances. You take action despite the fear, and that forces them to question whether they've been living in a self-imposed cage. Your journey forces them to realize that they've been hiding behind comfort far too long. They've been telling themselves it's okay to play it safe, but deep down they know they're not living to their full potential. And that discomfort, their inability to escape that cycle, is something they project onto you. They don't want to face their own stagnation, so it's easier to deflect and place the blame on you for making them uncomfortable. You have something that most people spend their lives searching for, the thing that eludes them, the thing that seems just out of reach. It's not always tangible, but it's real, whether it's success, peace, freedom, or the confidence to walk through life unapologetically. You have the ability to do what they wish they could do, to live the life they wish they had, and they can't help but notice it. Every time they look at you, they see a reflection of what they secretly desire but haven't had the courage or discipline to achieve. It's easy for people to want things, to dream about the life they wish they had, but the hard truth is that most of them are unwilling to put in the work, to make the sacrifices required to get it. They want the success, but they don't want the struggle. They want the results, but they don't want the grind. And then there you are, doing what they wish they could do, getting what they wish they could have, and that stirs something inside of them. It stirs a sense of envy, a bitterness that they can't shake off. It's not that they hate you, but they resent that you're living the life they feel they deserve. You have the things they feel entitled to, and they can't figure out why it's you and not them. You've worked for it. You've made decisions that others wouldn't dare make. You've taken the risks they've been too afraid to take. You've chosen to go after what you want, while they've let excuses, doubts, and fears hold them back. And because of that, your success highlights the gap between where they are and where they know they could be. That gap is painful. It reminds them that they have been standing still while you've been moving forward. It's not just about money, fame, or status. It's about the inner peace you exude, the contentment that comes from living your truth. It's the way you carry yourself, the confidence that comes from knowing you're doing what you were meant to do. People want that peace, but they're afraid to pursue it. They're afraid of the risks, the uncertainty, the potential failure. They want the rewards, but don't understand that the journey to get there is messy, uncertain, and full of sacrifices. You're not just showing them what's possible, you're showing them everything they've been avoiding. You have the clarity to take control of your life, the strength to not let anything or anyone dictate your path. You make it look easy, but they know it's not. They know you face challenges, failures, setbacks, and doubts just like everyone else. The difference is you didn't let those things stop you. And because you've kept going, because you've continued to push through, you've created the life they only dream about. And that is a hard pill to swallow. They're not angry with you, they're angry with themselves for not taking the steps you've taken, for not making the same choices you made. You've put in the work, the effort, the discipline, and the mindset. They can see that even if they don't want to admit it. Your success in the life you built remind them that the only thing standing between them and what they want is their own hesitation. You've made the leap, and they're left wondering why they didn't do the same. You're not the kind of person who settles for mediocrity. And that's one of the things that scares people the most. You see, most people live their lives in the safe zone, choosing what's familiar, even if it means playing it small. They're okay with getting by, okay with just enough, okay with doing the bare minimum to avoid rocking the boat. But not you. You refuse to let that be your story. You refuse to accept the idea that living a mediocre life is somehow acceptable. You don't just want to get by, you want to thrive, to reach your full potential, to make your mark on the world in ways that others can't even imagine. And that scares the hell out of people. When you refuse to settle for mediocrity, you challenge the very essence of what most people believe is good enough. It's easy to follow the crowd, to take the easy route, to do what everyone else is doing because that's what's expected. But you're not concerned with what's expected, you're concerned with what you're capable of achieving. You're not out here to meet the minimum standards. You're out here to go above and beyond, to exceed every limitation and expectation placed on you. You've heard the whispers, the doubts, and the criticisms. People want to know why you push so hard, why you can't just relax, why you can't just take it easy like everyone else. It's because you see life as an opportunity, not just a passage of time. You understand that mediocrity is the enemy of greatness, and if you don't put in the work, if you don't aim higher, then you're not truly living, you're just passing through. And for people who are content with mediocrity, that's an uncomfortable truth to face. When you make choices that push you toward excellence, when you refuse to lower your standards, it forces others to look at their own choices. They see you and think, why can't I do that? And instead of looking within, instead of asking themselves why they're willing to accept less than they deserve, they choose to look at you with resentment. They hate that you're not willing to settle because deep down they know they're settling for less than they're capable of. They know they could do more, be more, but they're too afraid to break out of the comfort zone they've created for themselves. Mediocrity is the path of least resistance, and people love it because it doesn't ask anything of them. It doesn't challenge them. It allows them to live in a state of quiet dissatisfaction where they don't have to risk failure or feel the pain of growth. But you've decided that mediocrity isn't enough for you. You've decided that the price of growth is worth it, that the struggles along the way are a small price to pay for living a life without regrets. And that's something most people won't ever understand. Your refusal to settle for mediocrity forces people to confront their own complacency. It shows them that there's more to life than just surviving. It shows them that if you want something greater, something extraordinary, you have to be willing to fight for it, to get uncomfortable, to challenge yourself in ways that most people would rather avoid. But here's the thing, if you want more, if you want to rise above the ordinary, then you have to be willing to give more. And you've already made that commitment. That's why you keep pushing, why you keep striving for excellence. Even when it's hard, even when it feels like no one else is on the same path. You're doing it for you, for your future, for the legacy you want to leave behind. Mediocrity never made history, and you're out here making sure that your story is one of greatness. You're not one to sit back and let people live in their own self-deception. You've never been afraid to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's something people can't stand. They've spent so much of their lives telling themselves little lies to avoid facing the hard truths about their dreams, their goals, their relationships, and most importantly, about themselves. They tell themselves they're okay, that they're doing their best, that everything's fine. But you see through it. You see the excuses, the justifications, the stories they've built to protect their fragile egos. And when you call them out on it, it shakes them to their core. You make them face the lies they've been living with. You don't let them hide behind the mask they've put up to avoid accountability. They say they want to be successful, but their actions don't line up with that desire. They claim they want a better life, but they aren't willing to put in the work to make that happen. They tell you they're just too busy or waiting for the right time, but deep down they know those are just excuses. They're afraid. They're afraid to face the truth that they've been avoiding, the truth that they haven't been putting in the effort, that they've been wasting time, that they've been playing small, because they're scared of what would happen if they actually went after their dreams with everything they've got. You won't let them get away with it. You won't let them pretend that everything is okay when it's not. And that's why they hate you. You make them uncomfortable because you're not afraid to tell it like it is. You're not out here sugarcoating anything. You see the truth and you speak it even when it hurts. People would rather live in a world of half-truths and comforting lies than face the reality of their own limitations. But you challenge that. You hold them accountable to the person they claim they want to be. The lies they tell themselves are easy to believe because they're familiar. They've been repeating these stories for years about why they can't succeed, about why they're stuck, about why they don't have the life they want. But you cut through that. You show them that the only thing standing between them and what they want is their own fear and unwillingness to act. When you call them out, when you point out that their excuses don't hold weight, it forces them to see the truth they've been running from. They've been holding themselves back. And that's the real issue. It's not you. It's not your success or your drive. It's the fact that you hold up a mirror to their lives, forcing them to confront the lies they've told themselves for so long. They want to stay in their comfort zone, in their little bubble of false security, but you're not letting them. You're pushing them to step out, to face the uncomfortable truth that the only thing keeping them from their dreams is their own willingness to lie to themselves. You don't do this to be cruel. You do it because you care. You want them to see what they're capable of. You want them to stop hiding behind excuses and start living the life they've been saying they want. The only way for them to get there is to face the truth, and you're willing to stand in their way and force them to do it. It's hard. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. And whether they hate you for it or not, it's the only way they'll ever truly grow. You inspire people whether you realize it or not. Your actions, your determination, your relentless pursuit of your goals, everything you do sends a message to those around you. You show them what's possible, what can be achieved with hard work and commitment. You make them believe in their own potential, even if they don't always admit it. But here's the thing. As much as you inspire them, they can't handle it. They can't process the level of ambition, the level of energy, the level of confidence you exude. It's too much for them and it makes them uncomfortable. You see, inspiration is a double-edged sword. It has the power to uplift, to motivate, to spark change, but it also forces people to look at themselves and face the reality of what they've been avoiding. It challenges them to ask, why am I not doing the same? Why am I not pushing myself like that? And for many, that question is terrifying because it's not easy to look at someone else doing the work, making the sacrifices and going after what they want and realize that you've been holding yourself back. You inspire them to want more for themselves, but they're not ready to do what it takes to get there. The gap between where they are and where you are becomes painfully obvious. They can see the effort you put in, the obstacles you've overcome, the way you keep going no matter what. They admire it. They wish they could do the same. But when it comes down to it, they can't handle the weight of the responsibility that inspiration demands. It demands action. It demands courage. It demands a willingness to fail and get back up. And for many people, that's just too much. You make them feel something they're not ready to confront, the realization that they've been playing small, that they've been settling, that they haven't been giving their best. And that feeling is uncomfortable. It's easier to dismiss you, to distance themselves from you, than to deal with the fact that your presence is a constant reminder they're not living up to their potential. You make them feel inadequate, but not because you've done anything wrong. You make them feel that way because you hold up a mirror to their life, and they don't like what they see. Inspiration is a powerful thing, but it requires a willingness to grow, to take risks, and to face the discomfort that comes with pushing yourself to new heights. And some people aren't ready for that. They want the rewards without the work, the success without the struggle. They want to feel inspired, but they don't want to put in the effort to make that inspiration a reality. So instead of taking the inspiration you offer and using it as fuel, they choose to reject it. They choose to avoid it because they can't handle the truth that your drive, your focus, and your success require. You inspire them, but they can't handle it because it's too much of a wake-up call. You show them the life they could have, but they're too afraid to pursue it. You make them feel the weight of their own unfulfilled potential, and that's something they'd rather not face. So they choose to hate on you or ignore you rather than confront the uncomfortable truth that your success is possible for them too, if they just step up and do the work. And that's what they can't handle, the reality that inspiration isn't enough. It requires action. It requires discomfort, and they're just not ready for that. You're not afraid to be yourself, and that's one of the most powerful things about you. In a world where so many people try to fit into molds, try to conform to the expectations of others, you stand out because you embrace who you are without apology. You don't hide behind a facade, don't alter your personality to make others comfortable. You've learned the value of authenticity, of showing up as your true self, flaws, quirks, and all, and that intimidates people. It's not that they dislike you, but it's uncomfortable for them to witness someone so unapologetically real. You walk through life knowing that you're not everyone's cup of tea, and that's perfectly fine. You understand that trying to please everyone is a waste of time and energy. Some people are going to love you for exactly who you are, while others may reject you for the same reasons. But you've made peace with that. You've accepted that your worth is not determined by other people's opinions. And when others see the confidence in your ability to be yourself, it brings up feelings they'd rather not confront. Most people hide behind masks. They put on different faces for different situations, trying to be who they think others want them to be. They suppress parts of themselves to fit into social norms, to avoid criticism, or to avoid standing out. But you've made a different choice. You've chosen to be real, to express yourself without fear of judgment, and that exposes a vulnerability many aren't willing to embrace. It forces them to ask themselves why they feel the need to hide behind their own facades. You make them realize that they've been holding themselves back from expressing who they truly are, from living authentically. And that's uncomfortable for them. It's not that you're perfect or that you have everything figured out. In fact, it's precisely because you're not perfect, because you're still figuring things out just like everyone else, that your authenticity is so powerful. You're not afraid to show up in the world with all of your humanity, your strengths, and your weaknesses. You don't pretend to have it all together, and that vulnerability is what makes you so relatable. But for those who are afraid to show their true selves, your authenticity is a mirror they're not ready to face. By being yourself, you challenge the idea that we must conform to fit in. You challenge the idea that we must shrink ourselves to avoid standing out. And that's exactly why people can't handle it. You are living proof that it's possible to thrive by being who you truly are, to find success and fulfillment without needing to mold yourself into someone else's expectations. Your confidence in being unapologetically yourself is a reminder to others that they have the power to do the same. But not everyone is ready to embrace that level of freedom. For them, it's easier to hate or distance themselves than to confront the fact that they've been holding themselves back by living according to the expectations of others. The truth is, they admire your courage. They envy your ability to step into the world and be exactly who you are without fear or hesitation. But rather than acknowledging their own insecurities and fears, they choose to resent you for doing what they wish they could do. You're a living example of what it means to be free. And that freedom makes them uncomfortable because it forces them to face the ways in which they've been limiting themselves. They're not angry at you for being you. They're angry at themselves for not having the same courage to live authentically. In the end, the truth is simple. You're not afraid to be yourself. And that's exactly why they struggle. You challenge their fears, their doubts, and their own insecurities. You remind them of the possibility of a life lived with no apologies, of stepping into their own power, of embracing who they are without hiding or changing for anyone. And while that may make them uncomfortable, it also pushes them to confront their own potential. So keep being you. Keep showing up with authenticity, with courage, and with confidence. Because the world doesn't need more people pretending to be something they're not. It needs more people like you, those who are willing to take the risk of being fully, unapologetically themselves. You may not be everyone's favorite, but for those who are watching, for those who are ready to step into their own truth, you're exactly what they need. And that's the kind of impact that lasts.